What tea are you drinking?
Chamomile.
Oh, I spent a fortune on, well, it's not a fortune actually, but I did spend money on a ridiculous number of teas, which, given what I said about pine needle tea,
Yeah, you've fallen for it.
I have. I've got like one, I change every 3 hours. I have a new pot. Look, I'm just coming to the end now. My pot of tea. And if I have it up to here, then, and I have 3 of those a day, that's my 3 litres of water.
Yeah, I use a cafetiere, an 8 cup. So I pop three, either 3 bags or loose leaf, and then I just top that up.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's quite handy actually, especially for loose leaf.
Yeah. So,
But it's also handy if you're not feeling very well and you are in bed for the day. It's handy because you've got a whole 8 cup cafetiere there with you, so you don't have to, try and get up and down the stairs with drinks and things. So yeah.
so the first day that I did it, I kept drinking it through the evening, not thinking. I was up weeing all night, all night. And now I've got, right, I have 1 pot before midday, I have another pot before 3 and another pot before 6, and then nothing after that, and then I'm okay.
Yeah, you have to space it out a bit.
We've got a topic.
We have.
Oh, and the doggies, can hear the doggies.
Yeah, the doggies are barking.
And I'm going to get the phrasing right. I was rushing to get here. So, why don't people like us? That was the topic, I think. Did I get it right?
I think so. Yeah, it was. Yeah, why don't people like us? Yeah, that was the topic.
Generally about people not liking us. And you put a post on the group, didn't you, to have a little.
I did.
A little bit, see what other people had to say about that kind of topic.
But I asked for both sides, so I didn't just ask for negative things. I also asked for positive things that people have said and done for people as well.
My thinking about, I don't feel like it anymore, but I remember that feeling. It was very, very powerful actually in the first at least 6 months, possibly longer.
Because opinions back then, during that period of time, that was when the pressure was on to get vaccinated, and opinions were very, I mean, they're still divided, but back then they were really divided, weren't they? There was one side saying that, for the good of the country, to protect your granny, to reduce transmission in the population, all the signs, they were all saying you need to get vaccinated, to the point where even in our documentary there's a clip, isn't there, where one of the ministers says, if you don't get vaccinated, you're selfish. And then on the other side, you had people sort of saying, if you get vaccinated, you're stupid, this is a bioweapon, it's genocide, it's depopulation, what do you think you're doing? So there was like this real political divide in medicine, really, and just the population in general, wasn't it? So if you fell in between that and you were vaccine injured, you kind of confirmed what some people believed, and then you also went against everything the other side was believing. So you were in this middle position politically, and people had very strong opinions because they were scared, both sides.
They did. And what I remember feeling at that time, accurately or not, I remember feeling hated, and I just felt this wave of extremely negative energy from everybody. I can't say everybody, but from the vast majority of people. And I remember somebody at that time said, the vaccine, never forgotten this sentence, the vaccine injured are the most hated people in modern society. And I thought that was a very powerful, and at that time it felt very accurate statement. It doesn't feel like that now. I've seen a real change. But I personally found that very difficult to deal with, this wave of dislike, of the negativity towards people who are vaccine injured. I found that very difficult. And I think that was part of my own mental health struggles dealing with it. And I think it's part of, and talking to other people who are vaccine injured, I think that is also part of why they find this so difficult to deal with. It's because the world does not feel very compassionate and kind, and your sense of where you belong in a world that is so unkind gets really disrupted.
I mean, there was one post, sorry to interrupt you, Caroline, go on, carry on.
Well, I think that affects how we feel about our futures.
Yeah.
And it's not just about, how am I going to overcome this illness? How am I going to go back to work? How am I going to take care of the people I love? How am I going to do the things that make life important for me? It's not just about how do I do those things now. It's about what is my future going to be in a world where I have seen so much hatred. That was all for me very much tied up in the world became a very unloving place.
What I was going to say was, do you remember a guy that's, I mean, he's still very outspoken and he's helped a lot of people with his posts, but do you remember Kyle Warner, the mountain bike rider? Do you remember his post last November?
When he was crying,
he broke down.
Yeah.
And he said, I've never felt so much hate in my whole entire life. And you could see the guy was really struggling with it, because, he was just standing there and telling his truth, because, people need to know about this. And he was getting so much hate to the point where he felt suicidal. He says it in the video, he says, I'm suicidal. And I think it struck a chord with a lot of vaccine injured people, because a lot of people were feeling that way at the time. And that provoked, we have had suicides, haven't we, in the bigger groups, and it provoked, the You Matter video from React 19. Do you remember that video as well? Where Brie and some of the others, Christy, and they did a video basically telling vaccine injured people that, there are people out there that care about them, and they do matter, and people do understand, and they're not alone. And we're still getting people join the group now, aren't we, that have only just realised they're not alone.
Yeah, there was somebody, in fact, I think today I was looking at, and she just joined a few days ago, and she said that her life has just completely changed now, because she knows that there are other people like her, and she has a space that UKCV family provides, that means she can then really fully experience what's going on. She can understand it. She's not having to hide everything from people, and she's got a safe space. She's got a safe space.
It is a safe space, isn't it? We keep it as safe as possible, and this is one of the reasons why we don't allow non-injured people into the group. It's just because there's so many wider issues and wider opinions on the political situation of our illness, that actually we just want to talk about our symptoms and how we're coping with them and how we feel about it. And somehow, they get used by people for different agendas in different ways on both sides. And, you need that kind of neutral space, don't you, where there is no political opinion, to be able to open up to people like that. Because it's, I mean, I asked for the comments on the group, and there were quite a lot of supportive ones, actually. I was surprised. Brian was talking about how his sister was so good, especially in the early days, and Natasha was saying how her husband stayed up all night with her when she had insomnia, and Chris met his girlfriend last year while he was vaccine injured, and his girlfriend has been amazing. She sat in hospital corridors and had dates with him while he's been in hospital, and his mum. And, you know, and Siobhan posted a load of really nice comments that people had left her as well. And she said she's normally a very private person, and only recently opened up about it on her social media. And she said she had loads and loads of support. You didn't know, did you, in the early days?
No, I didn't. I became really isolated, actually, I think, because I'm quite a social, well, I like my private time, but when I'm out and about, and I'm full of life, and I'm, you know, somebody who'll be singing at the top of a voice and randomly for no reason, and, you know, being a bit, I like making other people happy, I like making other people laugh. So if I'm out, I'm going to be out and about doing that, and I know quite a lot of people. And so when I felt strong enough, physically strong enough, to be able to go into the world, I was still struggling walking, but I was trying, and I was leaning on Matthew a lot. And when people said, "Are you okay? You know, haven't seen you for a while," and then I'd say to them what happened, their reactions, most of them at first were so negative and so unexpected and so lacking in compassion.
The old gem, isn't it? It's the old gem, you know, well, I've had 2 jabs and I'm fine.
Yeah.
You know, you don't say that to someone that's ill, do you?
No.
You don't say, I've smoked all my life and I haven't got lung cancer.
No. Although we don't respond to, like I said, you know, in the Better Way speech, we don't respond to any kind of illness by talking about how that illness doesn't affect us. We don't do that. So I think I was quite shocked when that was the response that I got, and my response to that then was to turn inward, and I stopped trying to go out, and I stopped going to interact with people. And and I remember having long conversations with Matthew, and conversations in my head, and conversations with some friends who would listen, saying, I don't know what the future is, because the world out there just feels really unkind, cold, yet cold. It feels felt like I had no place in it. And I think it's important, now that I don't feel like that, it's really important to talk about that. It was huge for me. It really was big. And I think that is still affecting people now who haven't yet found their way in our group, who haven't yet adjusted to life like this. And, you know, people who are still recently, there are still people joining our group all the time and we have another round of boosters coming up soon. There will be more people who deal with that. And that feeling of not knowing what your future is and what your role is in the world is huge and devastating.
The thing is, as well, you're not just dealing with that kind of those kind of opinions and comments and things. You're also dealing with battling the medical situation, so trying to get yourself help, because you genuinely, especially in the first 6 months, you genuinely feel like you're dying and no one wants to help you. So you're battling to get, you know, find a consultant to see, or find a, you know what the NHS waiting times are like at the moment. Most of us have had to spend a lot of money, haven't we? I mean, you've just tallied up 10.5 grand.
I yesterday finished that £10,500 in 17 months.
Yeah. But we kind of, you know, and you share everything that you're going through, don't you, on social media? So I mean, I read your posts and I read the comments, and, you know, you haven't had negative comments for a long time now. But if anyone's friends with Caroline, you scroll back to a year ago, it will be a different story, unless people quickly go and delete them now.
And actually, this is one of the things that could be quite useful for other people to do. Is I made a very clear decision that my social media was going to be a safe space. So my Facebook page was going to be a safe space, but my Facebook page was going to stay public, because I felt it was important to be sharing this, and I didn't want other people to feel they were alone. So in order for that to be a safe space for other people who are vaccine injured, or anybody dealing with any kind of weird, complicated health condition, actually, and feeling the same things, I had to, what's the word, curate. I had to I had to be very clear about what the rules were going to be to engage on my page. And so I said, no, you know, you're welcome to be here if you're, let's say, if you're pro, if you're anti, whatever your beliefs are, you're welcome to be here, but you're not welcome to have debates about it. Actually, this is my page, and the purpose of my page at this time is to create a safe space for vaccine injured. So stay, watch, read, learn something, ask questions, don't engage in a debate. That's not what it's here for. And it took conscious effort to do that, but it paid off.
Yeah, and I see it all the time with people that are vaccine injured and bereaved. Actually, Gareth Eve, who lost his wife last year. I mean, he's had such flack on Twitter lately. I mean, he's taking a break, I think, at the moment, but to the point where he posted his wife's death certificate, and the cause of death is the vaccine, and people are still arguing with him. It's ridiculous. They're still arguing with him, you know, and he's got to bring up children by himself. Angry academic Harriet, angry academic on Twitter, she got told the other week that she shouldn't call her vaccine injury a vaccine injury because it sent the wrong message. It made her sound anti-vax. And Harriet was like, well, what do I call it then? and if you read that thread, you'll see exactly what she wanted to call it at the end. It's rather rude. Yeah. She can shrug it off, but it's a common thread, isn't it? People attack us just for
and that's social media. That's something that we need to determine our own kind of presence and our own roles in it, and the role it has in our lives if we're dealing with a vaccine injury. And there are some people who, because it goes back to that feeling of feeling hated, social media can do a lot to make you feel either loved or hated, can't it? It can play with your emotions in a way other interactions don't, because people don't interact in that way in real life. Like comments
on BBC posts about vaccines, they're the ones to look at if you want to know what people say, because you'll find both sides of different arguments on there.
I think I've tried to stay away from a lot of the arguments about it. I try to.
It's not helpful, is it?
Yeah, as I've said to you before, I do a lot of keeping everything very calm. I try to keep my life very calm now because I need my body to be recovering or being healthy or whatever it's doing. But I try to keep everything very calm, and I avoid those negative experiences, even watching other people's negative interactions. They make me very uncomfortable. So I try to stay away from all of that. And I think if we're in a world where we're feeling disliked, we need to really nurture the people that make us feel loved. And I love it I love that little thread on our group when people were talking about the people that had been so kind to them and the nice things that had happened. I remember having people turn up with like punnets of blueberries. Just, they couldn't do anything. They didn't know what to do to help, but they knew, they were watching what I was doing on Facebook and, you know, the recipes, and I'm posting all of the anti-inflammatory diets and all this kind of thing. And you could see that they'd looked at it and thought, well, she eats strawberries and she eats blueberries, so I'll just pick up some strawberries and blueberries from the supermarket and drop it round. And if she can't talk, isn't well enough to talk to me, then that's fine. They just left it. Those kinds of things are just really lovely. They make you feel loved, don't they?
Well, like when I had COVID, this turned up, and it's a little support bracelet from America, and Jan Bryan Hunt is making them for free and posting them to vaccine injured people, and they've got 3 little prayer beads on. And you know, it's just to remind you that there are people even across the globe that care about you. And I think that's a really nice little gesture. You know, it's only a little bracelet, but it kind of means more than that. It means reaching those hands around the globe. And you know, that this, like you say, although there's been a lot of negativity, especially in our community, everyone that has just put their arms around each other, haven't they? You know, from every country, we reach out and we just kind of hold each other. And that has been one of the positive things that's come out of this for me, you know, just seeing the lengths people are willing to go to for someone that they're never going to meet, lives several 5,000 to 10,000 miles away from them, you know, yet they're willing to sit up at 11 o'clock at night talking to someone because they're suicidal in a completely different country from where they live. It's, you know, the love is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Sometimes you think about really horrible experiences. I wrote about this actually in my memoir about the Tohoku, about the tsunami. Really awful experiences create an opportunity for compassion to flow, and it's maybe an odd way to look at trauma.
No, I don't think it is. I think I agree with that statement. Yeah, I do.
Trauma,
and you know,
creates
there's
the opportunity.
People on the group, there's people on our group that I feel so fond of. I feel like I've been friends with them forever. You know, and I've
well,
when you
had COVID and I was trying to kind of, you know, not bug you with anything, because we talk most days, don't we? And so I tried not to call you or not to, you know, do anything, just send you the text, just check in that you're okay and everything. But I really missed talking to you. I did. I was, I don't, you like a sister, somebody that I talk to every day. We talk nearly every day.
Yeah, we do, don't we?
But we've never met in person.
No. It doesn't matter, does it?
No, and you know, when there are people on the group, occasionally some of them get together. Who got together recently? Somebody in Worcestershire. Megan and
Jamie.
Yeah, they got together and they posted a picture of themselves together. And that made me so happy.
I know. Yeah. And I think the ladies down in Berkshire get together. I know that Charlotte and Marie get together up in Leicester. You know, gradually all these people are kind of just finding each other.
Yeah.
And it's lovely.
There's somebody in Cirencester who I see her regularly. And there are often, because when I managed to do the pickle stall, there'll be people that kind of congregate, and I'll go down for a couple of hours. Matthew will be there all day, and I'll go down for a couple of hours, and Matthew will be there doing all the pickles, and I'll just be like one person or another, how are you doing? How are you doing? How are you feeling? And then it launches into this conversation about it, and there's always somebody that they'll know, someone who knows somebody who's not well, and every single week now there's new people who are injured. But I think, well, at least they know they're not alone. At least they know they're not alone. They're not going to get any hatred from this particular space. And probably the people who know me in Cirencester would think twice before saying anything insensitive now, I think, because I've been quite vocal about it. So maybe those of us who've been through the really horrible, that 6 months back then last year, those of us who went through that and heard that, maybe we can help create an environment where that's really not done at all.
Yeah, and there are things out there now, like our group, like your book, like React 19, like all of these things that support, that are there for support. You know, when we first started, it was just we were the start of it, weren't we? We were all, obviously, you know, Bree obviously got ill before a lot of us, but all the groups started forming, so we had no one that had been through it before. Or we thought we hadn't, but we were just forming these little, you know, sort of tentatively telling us what's happened to us, and comparing symptoms and doctor's notes and things, and then, you know, people now that might be getting injured from their boosters, there are places for them to seek support and information, you know. So I think we've done some good, not just us, but I mean, vaccine injured people from last year, I think, you know, there's so much work that's been going on. People are so passionate about it. I think when you're that ill and you don't know why, and you feel so hated, like your body is just some sort of political game of chess. um, you kind of you push for more answers, don't you? And you try and, you know, you find people, you find your tribe, as they say. And I, you know, now it's been over a year, I can see, well, I could always see why, but I can understand why some people were so angry, because, you know, there a lot of people were forced into having their vaccines. You know, they had no choice, they had to get them. They were told they wouldn't have a job, which means no work, which means no house, which means no car. And some people were, I mean, I saw an article yesterday that someone had posted on Twitter, and it was from a year ago, just before Christmas, and it was how to deal with your unvaccinated relatives at Christmas. So, and it just, you know, it made, you know, your choice to have a medical procedure should be yours and no one else's. And this is exactly the same way as I feel about sexuality, actually. It's none of anyone else's business. I don't care if you're gay, straight, bi, transgender, whatever. As long as you're a nice person, I don't care what you want to do in your private life is up to you. And it's the same with medicine. If you choose to take a vaccine or a medication, it's your prerogative. It's got nothing to do with me. So yeah, I think a lot of that's moved on now, I hope.
And I've seen people who, they probably don't remember, I do, I won't call them up on it, but I've seen people who a year ago were posting things or saying things that at that time deeply hurt me, actually, because they didn't quite realise they were the ones who were being quite nasty about people who had been who were choosing not to vaccinate, and not quite thinking of the way they were expressing things, and not quite thinking about the impact that might have on someone who is vaccine injured. Those people, a year later, I'm seeing completely different posts and completely different ways of communicating, and I see their compassion has grown in the last year. And one person in particular I'm thinking of recently bought, I think, 30 copies of my book, and I could not believe it when I thought back to how they were expressing themselves a year ago, and then now they were buying this many copies so that they could make sure other people didn't suffer like I did. That was huge. So if we are now seeing good coming from that, and that good is an increase of compassion in the world, then things are surely only going to get better.